evening, colleagues. Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing and Safety Committee. Do I have apologies for absence? No? Can I sign the minutes of the meeting, not only of the 11th of November, which was when this document started its journey, but also the joint meeting of committee on the 18th of May 22? That's if anybody can remember back to the 18th of May 22.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. I have no urgent matters. Are there any declarations? No? Then that brings us to the reason why we're here. And that is as a result of the decision we made in November to submit the statement of licensing out for consultation. Mandy, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you. Good evening, members. In its role as the licensing authority under the Licensing Act 2003, the Council has a duty to prepare and keep under review its statement of licensing policy. This policy sets out how the authority approaches its responsibilities under the Act, and it must be reviewed every 5 years. The current statement of licensing policy expires on the 31st of April 2023. We reviewed the current policy, which was considered by the Licensing and Safety Committee on the 18th of October, when members expressed concern relating to a number of web links not working, etc. I can confirm that members' concerns were duly noted, and the policy and the report was amended accordingly and presented to committee on the 11th of November, where members authorised officers to consult on the draft policy and report back with the results prior to recommendation to full council for approval. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to present you with the consultation responses received and seek your input in finalising the policy statement for publication and implementation subject to approval by full council. An 8-week consultation period was undertaken between the 14th of November 22 and the 6th of January 23. This was an extension of the previously proposed 6-week consultation to address members' concerns regarding the Christmas and New Year period, and it did still enable us to analyse and evaluate all responses and meet the relevant committee cycle deadlines. I can confirm only one response was received, and that was from a premises licence holder who had no comment to make on the changes proposed. We are therefore requesting that members acknowledge that no comments have been received requiring any further amendment to the draft policy document, and recommend the draft statement of licensing policy 23 to 28 as attached at Appendix A to full council for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. I think it's very interesting that there was only one comment, so I think we must have something reasonably good here. Do I have any comments from members? No? So you support the fact that this now goes forward to council for adoption? Agreed? Thank you very much. So then we come to what has been a bit of a thorny problem, and that is the issue over contactless payments in taxis. Mandy, are you going to deal with that one as well?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. At its meeting on the 22nd of April 22, the Council's licensing subcommittee agreed that a report on contactless payment for fares be considered. Following receipt of subsequent complaints to some members from their constituents that they have had extreme difficulty in finding a driver willing or able to take a card payment. This could be seen as a public safety issue, especially for vulnerable passengers unable to get a taxi home and putting them at risk, particularly at night or early hours of the morning. We're therefore seeking members' approval to consult on amending the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire policy to include a mandatory condition for all licensed Hackney Carriage and Private Hire vehicles to have a functioning cashless payment facility available for fare-paying passengers. Contactless technology was introduced in 2007, and according to UK Finance, Britain's leading financial trade association, contactless transactions rose dramatically by 2017. COVID-19 accelerated the use of card payments during the pandemic, and this method of payment has become the norm for most commercial businesses and favoured by a large percentage of the population for even small single item purchases. Cash point use has decreased nationally, resulting in their removal from some locations, including high streets, due to lack of demand. The costs associated with card payment machines vary. It is dependent on the provider. And attached at Appendix A is a table detailing the most common card machines used by the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire industry and the associated costs. There are concerns regarding collection affairs where a payment machine fails at the destination due to signal outage or technical fault, or if the customer's card is declined due to insufficient funds. Attached at Appendix B is a submission from the Medway Licensed Taxi Drivers Association. And the chair of the MLTDA is here, and if members and the chair agrees, he can answer any questions or clarify. Following the increasing number of complaints received by members of passengers being turned away for wishing to pay by card, it is proposed to include the addition of a mandatory condition to Appendix B of the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire policy. And that will state card payment machines, all licensed Hackney Carriage and Private Hire vehicles must be equipped with a card payment system in accordance with the attached guidance for electronic payment devices. That's attached at Appendix C. We're seeking approval for officers to consult on the proposed revisions and in accordance with the consultation methodology, both outlined in the report, and present a post-consultation report at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions or comments? Councillor Hackwell.
Thank you, Chair. I broadly support this. I think the world's moved on, and I think that lots of people, especially accelerated through COVID, that use contactless payments. My one concern is that there is a limit on contactless to 100. Now, if you suddenly jumped in a cab in Medway and went to Heathrow Airport or something like that, it's likely to be over £100. So are we stipulating it has to take a card payment as well as a contactless payment? Because I think some of the cheap sum-ups and things that you put in your appendix are not capable of actually physically putting a card in. So I'd like to know what the thoughts are on what sort of card reader we ought to have, whether we should mandate just contactless or contactless plus card reading.
That's a very good point. I think that is something that would have to be considered, and it's something that should come forward as part of the consultation or during the consultation period, so that we can then further research and see what the implications are and what's available out there.
It's all right, Dan, I've forgotten your name.
Oh no, already. It's Dan. I'm just reading through. I mean, with regards to that question, maybe Chair Nigel will be able to answer that, because I'm sure there is a system of taking over that amount of money. The only thing, Mandy, I do remember you was concerned about. I mean, I think this is really good. This is coming now, but I do also know that a lot of drivers wouldn't leave people just stranded. They do, even though we had a lot of complaints because they didn't have contactless. I know a lot of people have still helped people if they've been stranded at 3 or 4 in the morning. Was the issue, the thing that you was worried about was the Wi-Fi signal. So if it's mandated, there'd be something exempt if they were in the middle. I'm not saying who hasn't got Wi-Fi or Peninsula or somewhere, but if there was, we would know them sort of spots where Wi-Fi may not work. Is that right? Or they take the money before they get there, maybe, or.
In relation to the Wi-Fi network, the areas which we deem as sort of black spots, Nigel would be best placed to answer where those locations are. But I do know that with the advancement in technology, it's not as much of a problem as it used to be, and it is constantly developing. Medway itself is now going through, you've probably seen all of the roadworks with the 5G network going about. There are also payment machines which work offline, so that the transaction can still be taken but it doesn't actually go through until they actually hit a Wi-Fi spot.
Dan, I was just going to say, first of all, thank you very much for what you've submitted here, because I think it's very helpful. Perhaps you would like to, I believe you've got a machine there with you.
Yeah.
Perhaps you would like to just tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, sure. These are the standard machines that we use in the taxis. They're connected to a smartphone.
Mark, just give him his mic. Give him the mic.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Chair. These machines are the most common ones used in taxis.
Dan.
Oh.
Sorry, thank you, Chair.
Would you like to bring a seat up? It's a bit...
Thank you. Yeah, these small devices are the most common one used. You can actually buy these in Screwfix, for example, you know, for about £30–40. This particular one is a free machine. It's on a very low percentage, but these are connected to a smartphone by Bluetooth. They then use the mobile data signal from the mobile phone to take the transaction. Now, I've been taking card in the taxi for the last 7–8 years, and the black spots have gone down to practically zero within the Medway towns now. The Hoop Peninsula has got a very good signal, etc. For example, if you didn't have a signal, you can send a payment link to the customer via the internet for them to open up and pay after the fare has been taken, etc. There is other ways and means around the signal issue, but within Medway, there's practically zero black spots at present. Yeah, with these machines, they all do have the option to put the card in the bottom and do a normal PIN transaction. The only one I do believe isn't is the one called a Square, but that may have been updated now. So near enough, all of the machines have the option to put the card in, and I could take as much of the fare as I needed for an airport run, etc., or a long distance journey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Nigel. So, obviously, this goes a long way to address the health and safety concerns. So, I very much support this. But reading the submission that you put in, Nigel, 52% were in favour. So the 48% that weren't. Do you know the reasons behind that? Was that purely on cost?
Several factors. It's obviously every single driver runs their own business and has the opportunity to decide how they, or what currency they take, etc. So they do have the right to refuse a card payment at present, which I think is wrong. But to answer your question with the 48%, that was done nearly 3 years ago now. There are drivers coming forward on a daily, weekly basis asking what's the best card provider to use, etc. They're slowly uptaking the technology, and the last survey we did, it was well over 60% of the fleet of cars in Medway were equipped with a credit card machine.
So Mandy, if we go forward with this and put this out to consultation, will we make it clear that that there are them options out there, and give the example that perhaps Nigel uses as an option? Because I don't know if that's listed in your chart in Appendix A or not. But obviously, it's best to share that good practice and try and win over those people that are not in favour.
Yes, and that's something that Nigel and I are, we work together on this, doing the research, and it is something that I would like to try and sway the trade to coming forward and getting on board with, and any which way that I can do that, I will do so, and I will work with Nigel on drafting something up for the consultation that will encompass that.
Just really a technical question. I mean, when you pay at the pump for your petrol or you book into a hotel, you normally have to give a security card or your card over for security, and I think the petrol pumps take a penny just to make sure it's a live card before you get to the in-track section and filled your car up. Will it be the intention to do something like this for the taxi drivers, so it gives them a bit more protection, that says, this card is a live card, it's not a cancelled card or anything like that, and it just takes a penny or something like that that comes off the end? It's
just to answer your question there very quickly, if someone didn't want to pay the fare and they had a car that was with no money on it, for example, it's equivalent of someone doing a runner, which does happen, fortunately, touch wood, quite rarely nowadays, but runs along the same lines. We don't take any kind of guarantee up front. If we're obviously doing a long distance, we'd obviously take the payment beforehand to make sure that funds were available.
Just as a question, is it something that you'd be interested in as taxi drivers to make sure that the card isn't a reported stolen card or it's just not?
Honestly, from taking car payments over the many years, there's no facility available with these kind of terminals or what have you. The pay at pump is especially unique for people running off without paying for the fuel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mandy, for bringing this to us tonight, and thank you, Nigel, for answering our questions. Very happy to move recommendations at 8.1 on page 81.
Is that second? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. That then takes us to the last item, which is the review of membership. I'm not quite sure. You're going to do that?
Thanks, Chairman. This is for the committee to review the memberships of its subcommittees following the review of allocation of seats on committees by full council on the 19th of January. It's recommended there be no change to the size and allocation of seats. Just to add that Labour and Cooperative Group Whip has advised that their vacancy on licensing sub and the LHP will remain unallocated for the remainder of the municipal year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's really just a question of noting it, isn't it? So, do you agree to that, or would you like the Vice Chairman to move it? Would you like to move it?
Yeah, very happy to move recommendations on page 100, section 5.1 and 5.2.